Hey everybody, I'm going to live comment on the Apollo 11 press conference. This is like 3 weeks after they landed, and they were in quarantine for 3 weeks, like Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, right? And the third one who was in the capsule when it flew around the moon, allegedly waiting for these two guys to come back from the moon. You know, I noticed that I don't personally believe anymore that the Americans put a real man on the moon. But that doesn't mean I believe the Earth is flat. And I noticed something funny is that once you start talking about the moon landings, people come into your comments, they want to draw you into the flat Earth world. I don't believe the world is flat at all. So I just thought it would be fun to watch the original Apollo 11 press conference and see what these guys had to say. You know, this is the first time they are in front of an audience. They come out of quarantine, and I suppose here you have them, like Buzz Aldrin on the left, Neil Armstrong in the center, and the other one, the third one, Collins, I suppose. I suppose they'll mention their name in a bit. I just wanted to go through the whole thing. It's more than an hour or so, and see what they have to say. You know, what did they have to say about the moon landings? Was it exciting, or how did they describe it? I'm probably most interested in their feelings, like expressions of like heroism or so, or like awe, or what did they feel? First, cosmic travelers here. If you feel like commenting in the chat box, go ahead. Maybe I'll just put it up here. I'm doing a live commentary of the 1969
You guys just about say
Apollo press conference. Can I pin this comment or not? Problem with my live quality. Yeah, I guess my live dropped out for a bit.
Manned Spacecraft Center. This is the Apollo 11 press conference. The format today will consist of a 45-minute presentation by the Apollo 11 crew, followed by question and answers. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Apollo 11 crew, astronauts Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin. Neil?
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure.
Neil
It's an
Armstrong.
adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade.
Oh, he's nervous.
We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July that was
They look very
certainly
serious. They don't
the
really look
highlight
like
for
the
the three of
heroes
us
from the moon. Okay.
of that decade. We're going to divert a little bit from the format of past press conferences and talk about the things that interested us most, in particular the things that occurred on and about the moon.
Really? Let's hear it.
We will use a number of films and
You know, as you get older,
slides which
old people look
most
younger
of
and
you have
younger,
already
right?
seen.
In the movies, at least. Like Neil now looks
And
younger to me than in the past when he was always
with the
older. Right?
intent of pointing
In
out
this
some
video.
of the things that we observed on the spot, which may not be obvious to those of you who are looking at them here from the surface of Earth.
Yeah.
The flight, as you know, started promptly And I think that was characteristic of all the events of the flight.
Hi, somebody wants to
Saturn
ask me.
gave us
Yeah,
one
ask me any questions in the chat.
magnificent
If I can't answer it here, then I'll move it off somewhere else.
into Earth orbit and on a trajectory to the moon. Our memory of that actually differs little from the reports that you have all heard from those
Oh, that's weird.
previous Saturn V flights, and the previous flights served us well in preparation for this flight in the boost as well as the subsequent phases.
I got a little pause over here. Like, he's saying that they're not going to talk about their experience in the rocket. The most exciting part of the whole mission was blasting off of Earth and actually getting to space and on, right? He says, well, we're going to skip that part because it's not really interesting, blah, blah. You saw the rocket on TV, right? So that's all you need to know. This is a bit weird, You'd think that the blast
We would
from
like
Earth
to
is the
skip
most exciting
directly
part of
to,
the whole Apollo mission,
the
and he doesn't want to talk about
phase
it.
And remind ourselves of the long chain of events that actually permitted a landing, starting with the undockings.
He's very nervous. He doesn't know what to say, right?
Docking sequence.
Right, I'm going to pause. So he doesn't tell you anything about what it felt like to be blasted off Earth with a 1,000 G-forces in your back, shot up in that rocket, the Saturn rocket. You're afraid, right? Like, oh, is it going to explode? Because previously some rockets exploded, right? And this time you survive, right? And it's like, oh, you get to space and this is awesome, right? Because I don't think had they been to space before? Maybe they had. But, that should be this intense, awesome, wonderful feeling like, yeah, we survived the rocket blast. And they just skip over it and don't even talk about it. Like, oh, you know why? You know what? It's like they don't have any memory of being in the rocket because they weren't in the rocket. Let's just skip right to the docking part. Okay.
This was our first look at the magnificent machinery which had been behind us up until this point, the booster. Of course, the first and second stages had long since separated, but this shows the LEM nestled inside the third stage, the S-4B, after the translunar inject burn. This maneuver was an interesting combination of manual and automated techniques in that we programmed the onboard computer to make the turnaround, and then these final maneuvers were made completely manually. As I approached the LEM, I had an easy time because I had
this video,
docking target, which is
it
not
looks like
too
it's real,
clearly
right?
visible
Right?
here,
Like
which
in
allowed
space
me
or
to
something.
align
It
the
can be a
probe and
miniature
the
mock-up
drogue, which
somewhere
is
in the
dark
studio.
spot
You wouldn't know
see
the
on
difference.
upper right. During this time, I also checked out the proper vehicle response to my stick inputs, and here shortly you'll see the actual docking somewhat speeded up. There's the point of contact, and in just a second you'll see a second, right there, a second small indication of the retract cycle when the 12 docking latch is made.
We made 2 entries into the lunar module. This is our first view of the inside of this. The final activation was made on the day of powered descent. On the 2 previous days, when we entered, we removed the probe and drogue and found that we had a rather long tunnel between the 2 vehicles. On entering the lunar module, one had to do a slight flip maneuver or a half gainer to get into position for the lunar module, of course, is in a sense upside down relative to the command module.
This is in lunar orbit, showing the separation of the lunar module from the command module as viewed through my window. This was a busy time for me in that I was taking these motion pictures through the right-hand window. At the same time, I was taking still photos through the left-hand window, and also flying my vehicle and probably
they're
poorly
laughing, but
and taking a close.
they're laughing, but so far they don't describe their emotions at all, their feelings, nothing. How impressed were they at the fact that they're floating in space now? Nothing. They just talk about procedures and docking and this and that. They're totally focusing on the technical aspect of
Look
it,
at the
but not
limb
really.
as he
They're
turned
not telling you
around.
anything about their
My
experience.
most important job here was to make sure that all his landing gear were down and properly locked prior to his descent and touchdown.
Where's the
This
emotion?
is his yaw maneuver, and the white dots you see are the landing gear pads. This gives you a better idea of the detail available with the 70 millimeter. Of course, this is a still, and
If
shows
you
the
imagine
limb.
for a moment that this picture is actually a miniature hanging on silk threads or something, then you start to see what it is.
Either right side up or upside down, I'm not sure which. It looks more like, to me, it looked more like a praying mantis than it does a first-class flying machine in this view, but it was a beautiful piece of machinery. The landing gear are at the top, and you can see the probes which indicate lunar contact as thin wires extending upward from the landing gear.
Of course, before we could undock, as is shown in this picture, we had to complete the activation. Now, the day before we undocked,
Where are the stars? You're supposed to be in space right now. You're not on the moon, you're not on Earth. Where are the stars in all these pictures?
we entered the LEM and went through an entire switch configuration check, and we exercised the various communication modes. In retrospect, since we did have a little bit of communication problems on the following day during powered descent, we would recommend that we might make a more thorough check of this on the day before descent. On the day that we did finally enter the LEM for the landing maneuver, we went through a staggered sequence of suiting, and we found that with all the simulations that we had run back here in Houston, or with Houston tied with our simulations in the Cape, that we were quite confident that we would be able to complete this LEM activation in the given time period, which was approximately 4 hours. We managed to get 30 minutes ahead of the time, and it allowed us to get a more accurate platform alignment.
Again, all he's talking about is the technological process, the bureaucratic procedures, 4 hours, this and that, switches such and such. He's not telling you anything about how exciting it was or how stressful it was.
After the undocking maneuver, we went through a brief radar check, and then the command module executed a 2 foot per second maneuver away from us so that we would both be able to independently exercise our guidance system through a star alignment check, which we did following this separation maneuver. Now this occurred and
So again, they skip over the actual travel to the moon. Like, didn't they want to? What were they thinking during those hours or days or whatever it was when they were on the way to the moon? You know, what did they feel like? What did they wonder about? You know, did they think they were alone? Was everything going wrong? You know, nothing.
Close to the landing site, and you can see at this point the command module is traveling right over the center of our targeted point. He's approaching now what we call the cat's paw. Following this separation maneuver on the backside of the moon, we made a descent orbit insertion, which is slightly over 70 foot per second maneuver that lowers our altitude down to 50,000 feet. We had 2 guidance systems working for us, and they behaved perfectly. Both of them agreed extremely closely as to the results of this maneuver. Following this...
So, wait a minute. At some point, their module split into 2, right? The one part that went to the moon, and the one with the other guy, the guy on the right, who stays in that capsule that circles the moon until the other 2 come back. You know, you're supposed to be really, really worried and excited about this going right or wrong, and like, where's the emotion?
We used the radar to confirm the actual departure rate from the command module.
This is a view of the descent trajectory area as viewed through the LEM window during our activation.
Where are the stars in this picture?
Bottom right of the photograph is the crater Maskelyne, and in the bottom center is the mountain called Boot Hill. Immediately above Boot Hill is a small sharp-rimmed crater called Maskelyne W, which was the crater that we used to determine our downrange and cross-range position.
Yeah, this could be like a miniature
prior
moon that they
to,
photographed in in some studio on Earth somewhere. You know? It really
completing
it doesn't
the
look
final
like this is
phases
real.
of the
Where are
descent.
the stars? The stars should be extremely bright.
The
around
landing
here.
area itself is in the smooth area at the top of the picture, just before we arrive at the shadow, or what's called the terminator. We had seen a number of pictures from Apollos 8 and 10, which gave us an excellent understanding of the ground track over which we would pass during the descent. We're now looking out the right-hand window of the crater, and there's Maskelyne W. It occurred approximately 2 to 3 seconds late, and gave us the clue that we would probably land somewhat long. After completing those position checks, we rolled over face up so that the landing radar could lock on the ground and confirm.
Again, so far, all I'm hearing from these guys is the technical process, the procedures. Where's the excitement, the emotion, the feelings, the worry, the intense loneliness, the fact that two of these guys are going to leave their company, the third guy on the right, they're going to leave him alone in space. He's going to be alone for several days. You know, what did they talk about, you know?
Our
Where's the
actual
emotion?
altitude. Now, this picture doesn't show it, but at this phase in the trajectory, we were looking out directly at...
That's not true. Someone says when you stand in full sunlight, you can't see stars on Earth too. Yes, I can. Sometimes when you are on Earth with the sun out, I can see the pole star. So go fuck yourself in your stupid comments.
the planet Earth. In the final phases of...
That's not true. The moon absorbs 92% of sunlight. It only reflects 8%. So the moon is not too bright to see stars. You're a total fucking moron. And you're blocked.
Descent, after a number of program alarms, we looked at the landing area and found a very large crater just in the very left top corner of the picture. The camera is located in the right window and looks to the right, and it just barely sees this boulder field we're passing over right now. We're at 400 feet, and those boulders are about 10 feet across. This was the area which we decided we would not go into, extended the range downrange, and saw this crater, which we passed over, this 80-foot crater.
You know what this looks like? This looks like someone is holding a mock moon or something. You have a camera in front of a maquette, a mock moon on Earth, like, I don't know, 6 feet wide or so, 20 feet wide, and you move your camera over the surface like George Lucas would later do in Star Wars. You know, that's what this is.
Concern in that it degraded our ability to determine not only our altitude and altitude rate in the final phases, but also, and probably more importantly, our translational velocities over the ground. It's quite important not to stub your toe.
They keep just talking about
a touchdown.
The technical procedures, no emotion, nothing, no personal memories.
Once
I peed in my pants during this. Did he shit his pants when this happened? Nothing. He doesn't tell you.
The dust cleared immediately, and we had an excellent view of the area surrounding the LEM. This is the view out the left window. It shows a cratered
again, no
surface,
stars. Where are the stars?
Marked with craters.
It doesn't look so bright that I
15,
can't
20,
see stars.
30 feet, and many smaller craters down to.
It looks like this was recorded in a studio.
And of course,
because if you would make this in a studio, you can't show the stars because the stars, they keep moving around in the night sky, right? So every time you take a picture, you would have to exactly configure the stars, and that's impossible. Not even Stanley Kubrick could do that, so to just leave out the stars. Right?
The surface was very fine-grained. We could tell that from our view out the window, but there were a surprisingly large number of rocks of all sizes.
Where are the
This
stars?
is the view out the right window. Up close to the horizon, you see a boulder field that was probably deposited by some of the impacts.
Excuse me, but the surface of this moon photo does not look so bright that you can't see stars. If I can see the pole star during the day on Earth when the sun is out fully burning, right, then this is wrong. This is totally wrong.
Craters
There's
that
supposed
were
to be
behind
stars.
us. You see, most of the craters have rounded edges. However, there is a variation in the age of these, as we can tell by the sharpness of the edge of the crater. The general color of the terrain looking down sun was a very light tannish color. This blended as we looked more cross sun to a more sharper, well-defined features and more of a gray color. During the initial time period,
This is scripted. It's a
after
scripted
touchdown,
press conference. They're just reading
we
up.
went through various sequences to prepare
They could
us
have
for
rehearsed it a bit
immediate
better.
abort or liftoff if we found that that was necessary. We had found we had to vent the fuel and oxidizer manifolds a good bit earlier than we had thought. We went through these various checks and prepared for one liftoff that would occur about 21 minutes after the beginning of powered descent. The ground gave us a stay during this period. We did not have to make use of that. We then proceeded at that point into our simulated countdown, which consisted of checking our guidance systems.
More
We
technical
made use
stuff,
of a gravity
techno-babble.
align feature.
No
where the,
emotion, no personal
inertial
memories.
platform of the primary guidance would use the gravity vector to determine the local vertical. We would then compare this with the alignments that we had previously. We also made use of the stars through the telescope and aligning a crosshair by rotating
Yeah.
the field of
You
view
see him licking
until
his
the
mouth, yeah, keeping his
crosshair
mouth wet.
superimposed on the star. This would give us the angular measurement of the star within the field
Hi,
of
my
view
name's
of the
Buzz, and this
telescope.
is my
We then
presentation.
determine the distance out by aligning another reticle spiral on this. We went through an averaging technique on board and then fed this information into the computer, and this came up with our various alignment checks.
Again, he just talks about technical
This
stuff.
was all in
He doesn't say
preparation
anything
for a,
about how he
possible
felt. Did he shit his
liftoff that would
pants?
occur
Did his finger hurt?
about
Nothing.
2 hours after
Did his balls
touchdown,
freeze?
as Mike and Columbia came over for the first revolution. The ground network gave us a stay, and we continued briefly through the remainder of this checklist in our simulated countdown. And at this point, we terminated and powered down many systems on board the spacecraft and went into an eat period.
A number of experts have
My
prior
live
to the
stream
flight
has now
predicted that,
been
a good
limited,
bit of difficulty
has
might be
limited
encountered
visibility
by
on
people
TikTok now
attempting
because
to work
apparently
on
it's
the
not
surface of the
original
moon
content.
due to
Well,
this variety of
some
strange
loser reported
atmospheric
me
and
probably.
gravitational characteristics that would be
I'm
encountered.
going to finish it anyway
It-
because I'm going to upload this
It was,
to
in
my
fact,
YouTube channel later.
in our view, preferable both to weightlessness and the Earth's gravity. This led us to believe, this in conjunction with the fact that all the systems in the LEM were operating magnificently and we had very few problems, to go ahead with the surface work immediately. We predicted that we might be ready to leave the LEM by 8 o'clock, but those of you who followed on the ground recognize we missed our estimate by a good deal.
Yeah, daily lives. I want to do daily
This is
live
due to a
shows, like
number of
1 hour a
factors.
day or so. This one's going to be probably 1.5 or so.
One, we had house cleaning to perform, food packages, flight plans, and all the items that we'd used in the previous descent to be stowed out of the way and prior to depressurizing the lunar module.
Yeah, so this whole speech so far is clearly scripted. They go through the program, right? It's like a presentation before PowerPoint. And And so far, even when he describes his personal household tasks, making a sandwich or something, he doesn't say about what he felt. No feelings, no personal memories. What were you thinking about when you got here? How exciting was it? Nothing.
It took longer to depressurize the lunar module than we had anticipated, and it also took longer.
Someone
to get
asked what I use for my
cooling
live
units in our
setup. This is a
backpacks,
TikTok live studio,
operating.
so I stream it
than
on
we had
TikTok.
expected.
But it's on my laptop over here. I have TikTok
Some
Live Studio
substance, it took
on my
us
computer.
approximately an hour
And then I use a
longer to get ready
webcam,
than-
a Logitech
than-
basic webcam
than we had predicted.
with this microphone attached to the as the audio input source.
When we actually
The footage you're looking
descended
at, yeah.
the ladder,
If they tell you this is real-
to be very much like the.
Oh wait, here I want to comment somewhere here. You see in the corner left of the gray footage, you see the astronaut walking down the ladder, right? That's Neil Armstrong, right? But he's in the shadow. He's supposed to be in the shadow of the module, and since there's only one light source, the sun,
Gravity
you
simulations
shouldn't be able to see
we
him.
had performed here on Earth.
He should be in the shadow.
No difficulty
But he's bright.
was encountered in descending the ladder. The last step was about 3.5 feet from the surface, and we're somewhat concerned that we might have difficulty in re-entering the LEM at the end of our activity period, so we practiced that before doing the exercise.
Oh, they practiced that on Earth. Of course, they simulated everything, and well, they might as well have recorded those simulations.
Of bringing the camera down, which took the subsequent surface pictures. Here.
Neil is walking right in the shadow of the lunar module. He is supposed to be in the shade as well. You know, he's way too bright, in my opinion. I'm not an expert photographer, but I kind of feel that you shouldn't be able to see him because he's supposed to be in the dark.
See the camera being lowered on what might be called a Brooklyn clothesline. I was operating quite carefully here because immediately to my right and off the picture was a 6-foot deep crater, and I was somewhat concerned about losing my balance on the steep slopes.
Oh, I think this is the first time I heard any of these three guys talk about their feelings. He was concerned about sliding into a 6-foot crater or something. Okay. That's the first emotional memory we get from him after 20 minutes into this press conference. It's a bit odd.
The other item of interest in the very early stages of ETA, should it have been cut short for some unknown reason, was the job of bringing back a sample of the lunar rocks, and these photographs show the collection of that initial sample into a small bag, and then that bag being deposited in my pocket. This was the first of a number of times when we found two men were a great help. I quickly put up the TV camera. And then, more leisurely, but Buzz and I joined together to erect the American flag.
This is
We
a believable
found,
part, don't you
on a
feel? This
number of
part is quite
occasions
believable, right?
that we were able to help each other in many ways on the surface. You probably recall the times that I got my foot caught in the television cable and Buzz was able to help me extract it
Where are the stars?
without falling down.
We had some difficulty at first
It's
getting
definitely
the
a
pole of the
scripted
flag to
conference, right? They
remain
go
into the
through a whole
surface.
program, picture by picture.
In penetrating the surface, we found that most objects would go down about 5, maybe 6 inches, and then it would meet with a gradual resistance. At the same time, there was not much of a supporting force on either side, so we had to lean the flag back slightly in order for it to maintain this position. So many people have done so much to give us this opportunity to place this American flag on the surface, to me it was one of the prouder moments of my life to be able to stand there and quickly salute the flag.
The rest of the activity seemed to go very rushed. There were a lot of things to do, and we had a hard time getting them finished.
Well, they couldn't show stars in the photographs or anywhere because if this is recorded in the studio, you cannot possibly realign the constellations every time you take a picture. You know? Then people would definitely know that the pictures were fake.
A good bit better than
But to
perhaps
actually,
we had anticipated it. There was a
so
slight tendency
if it is recorded
to,
in the studio, you can't show stars. You have to somehow have an excuse not to show the stars.
Toward the rear of a neutral stable position. Balance seemed to be quite easy to identify.
Because it's going to be obvious that when they
as
really
one
go to
would
the moon
lean
someday,
one,
the
a
pictures
slight
will
bit
show
to one
stars
side or
and
the
they will
other.
be
It was very
bright
easy
and
to
beautiful.
identify when this loss of balance was approaching. In maneuvering around, as you saw, this was one of my tasks fairly early in the EVA. I found that a standard loping technique of one foot in front of the other worked out quite well as we would have expected. One could also jump in more of a kangaroo fashion, 2 feet at a time. This seemed to work, but without quite the same degree of control of your stability as you moved along. We found we had to anticipate 3 to 4 steps ahead in comparison with the 1 or 2 steps that are ahead when you're walking on the Earth.
We had very little trouble, much less trouble than expected on the surface. It was a pleasant operation. Temperatures weren't high, they were very comfortable. A little EMU.
Someone asked us if I would do a collab with someone in the Listener Rights for. Yeah, I'm thinking of doing more talks with other people. I have someone from South Africa who wants to talk. Maybe I'll invite someone myself. But I don't know if Keith Woods would want to talk to me. I don't really know this guy that well. You know?
The primary difficulty that we observed was that there was just far too little time to do the myriads of things that we would have liked to have done. In the pictures we showed earlier, you saw rocks in the boulder field out Buzz's window that were 3 and 4 feet.
It's totally understandable, though, that, you know, if you are in 1969 and you see these pictures and they give you a good excuse for the reason why there are no stars, you want to believe it because the pictures are so beautiful. You want to believe it.
Very likely pieces of the lunar bedrock, and it would have been very interesting to go over and get some samples of those. There were other craters that differed widely that would have been interesting to examine and photograph. And we had the problem of the 5-year-old boy in a candy store. There are just too many interesting things to do. The surface, as we said, was fine-grained with lots of rocks in it. It took footprints very well, and the footprints stayed in place. The LEM was in good shape and exhibited no damage from the landing or the descent. It's a picture of the ladder with the
this thing looks way too
plaque,
fragile to be able to land on the moon, right? You think this
primary
thing would
strut.
crumble on arrival or something? Like just a little bit too much force, and this thing would have crumbled like cardboard because it looks like it's
There was
made
a
of
question
cardboard.
as to whether the LEM would sink in up to its knees. It didn't, as you can see. The footpad sunk in perhaps an inch or 2. And the probe in this picture was folded over and sticks up through the sand in the bottom right-hand corner, showing that we were indeed traveling slightly sideways at touchdown. There were a
But no
wide
dust.
variety of surfaces.
You said they
Here,
traveled
Buzz is
sideways,
standing
but there
in a
was no
small
dust on
crater,
the
and it gives a very
lunar
good
module.
picture of the rounded.
Oh, I'm
rims
just
of
live
the,
commenting the Apollo
of the-
11 original press
what we
conference.
believe are
from
very
1969.
old features. The
I just felt like
LEM was in a relatively smooth area between the craters and the boulder fields. And we had some difficulty in determining just what straight up and down was. Our ability to pick up straight up and down was probably several degrees less accurate than it is here on Earth, and it caused some difficulty in having things like our
You know what, maybe
cameras,
TikTok doesn't want me to show this because it's
and
unoriginal
scientific
content. You're not allowed to
experiments,
show content that
sometimes
isn't yours,
not maintain the level
apparently. So
attitude we
I
expected.
get messages here on my system.
The two experiments that you saw in the previous picture were deployed in a scientific equipment bay. We found that getting them down produced no significant problems, and here you see a view of my carrying these two experiments out to the deployment site about 70 feet to the south of the lunar module. You have a very good view of the varying depths of this upper surface layer. You see that along the crater rim, the small crater rim off to my left, along this the upper surface appears to be about 2 to 3 inches, and the subsurface has a slope that is rather ill-defined, and one has to be very careful in threading your way around these very small craters. Any long excursions, I feel, would take a good bit of attention as you're moving along to avoid walking along or down the slope of some of these smaller craters. This is the passive seismic experiment that was deployed and has been giving us good returns on the interactions of the moon. We had a little difficulty deploying one of the panels. I had to move around to the far side and release a restraining lever, and then the second panel came out. We had a little bit of difficulty determining, as Neil said, the exact local horizontal. And I think this is due to the decrease in the cues that a person has as to which way up really is. One has to lean a little bit more.
Yeah, the depth
off
of
to
field
the
in these
side
pictures
before you
really
get this
betrays
body
it's made
cue
in the
that-
studio, you know.
that
It's
you're
like
approaching off
you
balance.
never
And
see
of course,
farther than
the
that,
terrain
you know.
varied
It's
considerably
a bit strange.
in this area. This second experiment is the laser reflector. We've been successful in bouncing laser beams off this. It consists of 100 arrays of corner reflectors. It was quite surprising the resistance that was met in this subsurface medium, and at the same time you see that it did not support very well the core tube as I was driving it into the surface.
This is a close, a double picture. It's actually a stereo picture of
Well, it's getting a bit
fine
boring.
particulate material in
I'm
the
gonna
moon.
turn it off because TikTok is giving me trouble with. Maybe I can undo this. Put myself in the center again for a moment. Unlock. TikTok tells me I'm not really allowed to show it because it's, you know, unoriginal content, so blah blah. Maybe I can just do something else. Still live. All right. I need a better lighting setup in my recording studio here because I got trouble with my eyes when the lights get too bright. Madcast says, I decided to watch all your videos. Yeah, I have a whole bunch on YouTube, right? And also on my TikTok, of course. Short videos on TikTok and long videos on YouTube at The Great Johannes. You can find them there if you want to watch them, you know. Maybe I'll talk about some other things and let's see. The thing in Ireland is so extreme now. You know, there was this killing of children in broad daylight, right? In Dublin. And then what happened? There were riots. The locals rioted and set a police car on fire, for example. And of course, you should not promote any of that. But the way the governments in the West treat these kinds of happenings, right? Ireland now wants to pass extreme hate speech legislation, basically shutting everybody up. Conor McGregor is under investigation now. The UFC fighter, he he had some things to say. He said he declared war. Basically, he said we're at war, and I think, well, that's true. At least we are at war. We are at war with governments in the Western world who are siding with people outside of our borders against the people within the borders, and that's simply so extreme. It's treason. I made a video about that today. It's just simply treason, you know. Yeah. Someone writes, this is why we praise our Second Amendment right in the USA. Yeah, well, in Europe we don't really have guns, so it's a bit of an issue. We can't really do anything anyway. But in general, the Western countries, including the USA, the US government is extremely anti-white, and the media are extremely anti-white, anti-European, middle class. It's totally bizarre, you know. It's just so evil. All right. Yeah, someone says that maybe the idea of a united Europe wouldn't work. Yeah, but I think eventually it has to work. How are we going to withstand the power of the USA if we always stay divided? If we will one day manage to unite as Europeans, even if it were for just a few decades, we would get so much done. We would have so much done. Okay, maybe I want to apologize for it because I was a bit rude toward two people earlier in this video. I shouldn't have done that because I just sometimes I get tired of the trolls, people disagreeing with you, because when you're a public person on something like TikTok, you know, you get so many people who disagree with you in such nasty ways that sometimes you feel like, okay, I should let go. I should let it go. But then also sometimes you just had enough of it, you know. Anyway. Yeah, the Kalergi plan is very real. It looks like they're using Ireland as an experiment, you know. Don't you think that Ireland, they're trying to make the Irish natives a minority in their own country, and they're trying to learn how to do it. And if they can do it to Ireland, they're going to do it to everybody. I think that's what they're really doing. I think the globalists really are using some European countries just to try things out. They're trying to make genocide us, meaning make us minorities in our own countries. Not quite total genocide, but they're definitely going to make us a 20% or 30%, maybe even less, 10% minority. Very few of us will be able to live as who we are with our own culture. Parts of our culture will be outlawed, forbidden, made criminal. The expression of certain cultural events will be banned, right? You want to be a Christian 20 years from now in Europe? You might not be allowed to be a Christian 20 years from now in Europe. That's what I'm talking about. They're imposing leadership from India and from the Islamic world onto us. You just have to swallow it and accept it as though us wanting to exist at all is now a hate crime. And that's just totally insane. Yeah. Someone writes that the death rate around the world is going to go up by at least 10% or so, yeah. Or has gone up, yeah. Maybe. Due to all sorts of reasons, yeah. Do I believe in the New World Order? I think this was the idea of the old George Bush, right? George H.W. Bush. He came up with, around his time, they came up with the New World Order idea. I suppose the New World Order was to simply establish the USA as the ruler of the world, a sort of U.S. empire imposed on the world. The rules-based order, basically. The rules-based order where everybody has to live by the rules that the USA designed, apparently. But it's not working. So the whole idea of this New World Order is failing because people, countries, you know, Arab world, Africans, China, none of them are really listening to the European rules anymore. Europe, in a sense, is very alone. Europe, Western Europe and USA are really, when we speak of the Western world, it's just Western Europe and the USA and Canada and so on. Whereas that's not a majority. That's just like 10%, 20% of the world. The other 80% of the world does not align with us anymore. They don't agree with us anymore. They still fear the US military, but they don't want to be a part of that US American rules-based world. No. The US-led world. They don't want to be part of it, yeah. Yeah, someone watched one of my videos about making our communities get through this. Yeah, we're going to have to do something about something. I feel that this war, we are at war with treasonous elites in the Western world. They don't care about us. They want us gone and extinct. It's deeply problematic. I got a message from TikTok because I was showing the press conference of the Apollo 11 earlier, and it said that you're not allowed to show this on live. It's blah blah. Where do I see the Netherlands in a decade or two? Yeah, I suppose a slave of the World Economic Forum. If nothing is done, it will be hyper multicultural. White people will be a minority 20 years from now. The churches will have been broken down. Islam will be the dominant religion. Something like that. Not very pleasant. No, not very pleasant place. It won't be very pleasant. See if I can play some music. Synthwave radio. I'm gonna read some news articles. Let's see if some interesting comes up, you know. Alright, I'll type in my YouTube channel here. The Great Johannes. Same username as my TikTok. Why do they hate us? It's just envy. That's really what it is. The white leftists and the immigrants, they unite in envy. Yeah, Europe invites Russia to a dialogue. I think many Western leaders by now in NATO also realize that we lost the conflict with Russia, the war. And they didn't really expect that, apparently. They really didn't believe that they were going to lose. That they thought, oh, Ukraine is going to overthrow Russia. They really believed that. Otherwise, you can't explain the massive waste of life. Nobody really talks about the tally, but it must have been like 500,000 men died in that Ukraine-Russia conflict, and we don't even talk about it. Where are the memorial services for all these people? This is sad. Let's open Zero Hedge. Find some things to talk about. You know, it's amazing now, the sphere of news that you get from TikTok is so very different than what you get from Twitter X. On Twitter X, it's all nastier. The news is much meaner. There's a lot more talk about Israel, Palestine. Whereas on my TikTok, I don't see that kind of news at all. I see very different kinds of things. Like, oh, here, the Irish authorities apparently demand access to private social media conversation, to your DMs, your direct messages, and so on. Because they fear that the locals are turning anti-migration. Well, Europeans have always been anti-migration, but the Irish people are really waking up now, you know? It's just so, I think I mentioned this already. I've been speaking about this for several days now. What's going on in Ireland is so the blueprint for what they're going to do to all of us in Europe. We need to take note. Because I think in Ireland we will also have to learn how to fight back against what the governments are doing to us, you know. Yeah, Australia and New Zealand doing the same thing, right? Someone from Ireland, apparently a relatively famous person there, the barrister Joe Brawley, described the Algerian migrant who stabbed 3 children as a gentleman, and noted how 3 women took it up themselves to protect him and probably saved his life from the anger of the mob. See, they're turning the killer into the victim now. This is so disgusting, man. People have lost it. The media are trying so hard. Oh, someone sent me 5 roses. Thank you very much. The media are trying so hard to always protect the immigrants coming to Europe for some really strange reason. It's not logic. It's not moral. It's just evil. They really believe that the migrants coming to us are innocent, but that's just not true. Why are 90% of the rapists in Sweden immigrant men? So there is a connection between crime, rape, and migration. Namely, it's very simple. The connection is migration. Criminals are more drawn to migration, especially if you easily open the borders and you don't do any checks, you don't vet the immigrants coming in. Makes it very easy for criminals with bad intentions to come. They are simply, what I'm saying is that criminals from other countries are more motivated to come to the West thinking they can score bigger here. That's what it's really all about. But it's the leftist media who automatically make everything about race. They say, well, you know, the only reason you hate immigrants is because they're brown. No, it's because they're criminals. So you're saying brown people are more criminal? No, I'm saying immigrants are more criminals. It's all very different, and they, you know, they're hurting us. They're totally harming us, you know. Migration draws in more criminals, so you have to vet the immigrants, but this nobody wants to do because that's racist. But it's not. Vetting immigrants is not racist. It's sane. It's normal. You're supposed to do this. Someone writes, as a young adult, I feel very atomized. Yeah, really? You like disconnected from the social world or something? I also have something like that because, of course, I can hardly speak my mind to normal people I meet outside. They wouldn't understand what I'm talking about, or if they did, they would just get angry at me, right? And that's a bit frustrating, yeah. But I did play sports, group sports in the past. You know, you can always join some club and then just talk about normal things, you know. Yeah, like in the USA, blacks commit overwhelmingly more crimes than whites, yet they call them the victims. Yeah, that's not true. They're the victims of their aggression, really. I think in the past there was a concept of the black inferiority complex, and when they hired black people, they would actually test them. They pushed them a little bit on purpose to see if this inferiority feelings would come to the surface or not, and if so, they wouldn't hire them. And if they were stable, like if they were mentally stable, then they would hire him. So it's, you know, yeah, we was gangs and shit, yeah. A senior CIA official posted, then deleted pro-Palestine conflict. You're not allowed to pick sides if you want to pick pro-Palestine, right? Are you pro-legal migrants who come to work and behave? I'm for migration within your kind of ethnic groups. Like in Asia, they have a lot of migration between, say, Korea, China, Thailand, Japan, and so on. But it's within their kind of people, right? They're not mass importing Africans. They're not mass importing, Eskimos or whatever. But what we're doing in the West is when we're opening the border for everybody and we're no questions asked. We don't vet you. We don't care about you, what you come to do here. And then you get a situation like in Sweden where all of a sudden they realize they have to start deporting people. The idea that all people are naturally good and equal is false. Tons of people are just no good. Yeah, vetted legal immigration. Like, do we really need you here? You know. And I noticed that left-wing thinkers, they perceive borders as a wealth thing. They're trying to keep poor people out of your wealthy society. You don't want them to be wealthy. Whereas I don't frame it in that manner at all. I look at more as a cultural thing. Like, I don't want to be surrounded. First of all, I don't like overpopulation. I don't like crowdedness. So I personally don't like it if too many people come and they change the culture of the land. And all of a sudden, my customs are banned. Like in the Netherlands, several of our Dutch customs are being banned. Like the St. Nicholas festivals we have, certain aspects of it are being criminalized now. Like, wow, that is not something I would ever be able to support. Of course, I don't support mass immigration if it means I have to delete my culture. No. It's just bad. Yeah, like in prison, inmates naturally group by race. I suppose so, yeah. But this happens everywhere, you know. I saw news that in certain states in the US, they're now going to segregate high school students by race, namely the blacks and the Hispanics will be separated. And they don't call it racial segregation, they call it affinity classes. Affinity classes. It's because apparently the Hispanic kids, they just don't want to be in the same classroom as the Negro African Americans. And I wonder if these are immigrants, like immigrant Hispanics and Latinos come to the US and they don't want to be in the same classes as the African Americans. And no one calls that racist. They call it affinity classes. Wow, that's just insane. The United States has the biggest prison population in the world, yeah. Yeah, partly because it's a commercial system, right? You can make a lot of money sending people to jail, or paid for by the taxpayer, strangely. In another totally democratic move, the United States people were trying to get Trump off the ballot for the 2024 elections. Crazy. Crazy. Hello from Mississippi. Really, there's now segregation in ceremonies and graduations in Pennsylvania, Chicago, Minneapolis. Okay, wow. So they're just doing that, just like that, huh? And now, okay, weird. So they're just bringing back racial segregation under a different name, like affinity or whatever words they think of. Greetings from Goed uit Zeeland, greetings from Zeeland, the Netherlands. Yeah. Where else are you streaming right now, brother? Just here, just on TikTok. And then later I will upload this video to my YouTube channel where I upload my longer videos because they don't fit on TikTok. Yeah. Hey from South Africa. Trump 2024, yeah. I can't vote in the US elections, but obviously I do think Trump would be my preferential candidate, you know. Oh, there's some Dutch people watching me. Goed uit Oud-Beierland, wow. Hello from Virginia, USA. I don't know, if I start reading all your greetings, then I'm going to be that kind of NPC channel where I... Yeah, Trump is a Zionist, yeah. Have you seen Milei, the Argentinian who won the elections there? He converted to Judaism like literally a day after winning the elections or so. Greetings from Brabant, yeah. Goed uit Brabant. Yeah, keep up with the great content and would love to see you run for a position one day. Well, the thing with this is, I don't know if I can do it in politics, but I should definitely somehow play like a populist leader or something. That's definitely what I would like to do, yeah. Wilders is also a Zionist. Johannes is not Deutsch. It sounds Jewish. Yeah. Well, in the Netherlands, lots of people, they get biblical names, you know, and they're Hebrews. Of course, they're Hebrew names, like Johannes, Matthias. But my last name is Konrad. Conrad is like a 10th century Germanic name, and it means something like brave counsel. But then again, I don't get hung up on last names and things like that. I just pay attention to, I usually pay attention to what are people saying, what do they say they believe in, what are their convictions, and I judge people based on that, which is what you should do. But whoa, people can get very, very angry when you actually judge them on their beliefs. I'm gonna vote for Kennedy Jr. Yeah, I like Kennedy Jr.'s stance on the COVID thing, the vaccinations, man. When you realize that, as they say, right, just 50 years ago, kids got like 3 shots, they were done, and now kids are born, they get like 50 shots before age 15 or so. Something is not right here, because we're not getting sicker. We're getting pumped full of chemicals for marketing reasons. It's not right. Start being a leader, Johannes. Yeah. Sometimes people tell me I should be a leader, or they see me as a leader in Europe. I would like to be, that's for sure. But you know, I don't come from an influential family or anything. It's not like I have connections. I don't. So I would have to be a populist leader and really rally the people, which basically means I'm going to get arrested or shot. So I'm kind of like building up to that point where I would be ready to get shot to be a populist leader, because that's the only way I would be able to do it. I would have to actually get over this. You know, I have to do everything I want to do in life, and then, okay, now I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the leader I can be, and see how far I get, how far they'll let me get. I suppose I'm extremely right-wing, but you know, I'm smart about it. You know, it's not like I believe in things that are obviously false or bad or so. But it's hard to say what exactly my political ideology would be, because it's not capital F fascism or national socialism. It's more like some kind of reactionary conservatism, where I just want to bring things back to when they were still right. Me neither. I also never got vaccinated. You know, is capitalism good or bad? Depends. If you are using capitalism as a way to fund operations in society that benefit the world, that add value, yeah, well, then it's okay. But if it's just for you to extract profits from the environment, the way Bill Gates does, well, then that's really bad. Yeah, if I ever try to make a move, I'd have a small but loyal group of people that I built up on TikTok. Yeah, I'm gonna keep building up my audience, obviously. That's why, you know, I want to do daily streams for an hour and a half or so. Have you got a plan to go to politics, to get into politics? Yeah. I'm looking for some kind of organization where I can start speaking. I would just prefer to be a speaker, and I would like to speak every day, doing speeches wherever I can, all throughout Europe if possible, like sort of pan-European thing, right? Not necessarily a national thing. I'm not interested in national politics, because I really believe that in Europe we have to take things to a bigger level. No, I would never go to Thailand to fight a wife, no. I'm not afraid of the flu, no, me neither. The diesel euro. Europe is guzzling Russian oil, but in the form of Indian diesel imports. Yeah, so Russia is still selling oil to India. India is doing the refining, and then they sell it on to Europe. And this is why those sanctions don't work. It's just silly. Also, we're also still buying gas from Russia through the Turk Stream pipeline, which they're also trying to destroy, by the way. Yeah, I still produce music in my spare time now and then. I plan to make more music early next year, January, February. I'm thinking of making an album, like 10 songs or 12 songs, one album. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't decided what genre yet. Maybe because I'm getting bored. I get bored very quickly, so I got bored with trance music or so. Or maybe I'll make either a trance album or a synthwave album. Either one of those. I'll just have to sit down for it and decide what I want to do. Pan-European Brotherhood, yeah. How do we maintain distinct European cultures? Well, that's supposed to come naturally, right? Have you noticed that in the Netherlands, people are so afraid of the government? The government told us to ban Black Pete, right? And so Geert Wilders wins the election. All of a sudden, some people are no longer afraid to have the Black Pete out. And that's just so... I can't make a country album, Sally. I can't sing, I can't play the guitar. I don't have things like that. Do you want the world to go back to normal or turn into something completely new? My answer is something new. Europe should, in my view, become a sort of Spartan warrior state for a while, to really assert our dominance and be strong again and manly and focus on us succeeding in really big, important things. And really also just have fun in life. People nowadays, they live in fear. They live in fear, they are obedient, they obey the government, and they don't really... I mean, everybody's like, when we speak of oppression, you think it comes from a dictator, but rather it's us. We're oppressing each other in a sense that, everybody's criticizing everybody else all the time. Do you have any thoughts about the USA elections next November? Well, of all the candidates, you have Kennedy Jr. as a Democrat, you have Trump as a Republican. Those would be ones I could support. I support a lot of their ideas. But I don't think they will allow these to win. They will probably go for Nikki Haley or something. Or a woman on the Democrat side. Because they're behind the scenes. They just want to push the feminism really hard, much harder than they've done so far. It's going to get even worse. And they want to push the gender neutral society. I mean, you should not be surprised. Shouldn't be surprised if you're going to get a transgender minority president next time. Yeah, I would never vote for support someone like Vivek. It's so weird. They're pushing these Indian people all over the West. They have one in Ireland. They have one in England. They have one in Scotland. We have these I am really truly opposed ethnically minority people having any say over us, to be in power over us. It's just wrong. This is how you lose your future. Yeah, on the speaking thing, yeah. I would like to tour Europe and be a speaker. I'm presently working on a speech. It's going to be like a 1 hour long speech or so, where I want to really provide my vision. I'm going to split it into 3 parts. I'm going to talk about the past, the present, and the future of Europe in relation to the world. And I want to do away with the religion of relativity, as I call it, where everything is relative, your culture is relative, and so on. All right, someone has to go now. Europeans have no idea how good they still have it. I don't know about that. We're being milked like cash cows. Our wealth is being transferred to immigrants, and soon we will simply be slaves, as poor as slaves, really. And that's why I feel like during this transition that our criminal, treasonous elites are imposing on us, there may be an opportunity to seize power and start doing something else. Yeah. I definitely do not trust politicians in Europe and the leadership in Europe. It's just not right, maybe I was naive when I was young, when I thought that society was real and governments were good. Yeah, and then you wake up and you grow up and you realize, okay, wait, we're just being conned and scammed by cliques of people who are able to do so, and that's all it is, really. Everything comes from Davos, Brussels, the United Nations, yeah. The real rulers, yeah. I think problematically in Europe is that they come with these big ideological ideas like climate change or the gender neutral society or equality and feminism and so on, right? And they impose these things on you as though these are absolute truths, and if you even question these things at all, you are the problem. And that is just unacceptable. Someone protested on the Dam Square in Amsterdam against the euro, introduction of the euro. And now we're screwed, right? Rothschilds serve a globalized agenda, really. They have breeding rights to the crown. Don't know about that. Yeah, when you're a conservative in Argentina, the Netherlands, and so on, yeah, then they make you an extremist. They will, yeah, like in Ireland now, right? You say anything against immigration, it's a hate crime. And that's just really, really. Wow, some people are sending me more roses. Thank you very much. Do you think these right-wing people being elected recently will act? No, they won't change anything. Geert Wilders already said in the news that he probably won't be able to do anything about mass immigration. Come on, that's the only reason you were elected, and he says he's not going to do anything about it, you know. Yeah, they're going after Conor McGregor, the fighter, yeah. It's very bad. Alright, I'm gonna log off now and probably see you again next time, tomorrow around 8 p.m. tomorrow then, a bit later, because I started early now. So, you can go to my website, www.jmk.info to connect with my my newsletter. Oh, that's one W too many. 3 W's. It's my Substack newsletter. Well, see you around.